Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sustainable Life channel. I'm Douglas Sabo, or at Green Living Doug, across social media. And wow, am I excited for this conversation today. We have a very special guest joining us. We have KoAnn Skrzyniarz. She is the CEO and founder of the Sustainable Brands organization and company. And she is here today because Sustainable Brands, one of the many things that the entity does, and I'll invite you, KoAnn, to share a little bit about that in a moment, is host a number of global convenings. And one of them is the flagship event that just took place, Sustainable Brands 2023. So we are blessed by getting KoAnn's presence today, a week right after it just ended. You look surprisingly well rested from what I imagine was a crazy time. But first, KoAnn, welcome to the Sustainable Life channel.
Always a joy to be speaking with you, Doug.
Right. Well, first tell our audience, I think almost everybody knows and is very familiar with Sustainable Brands, but for those few out there who may not be, could you introduce the role of Sustainable Brands as a home for courageous optimists, among other jobs that the entity does?
Oh, that's a very nice frame and one that was given to us by our community, which I'm always touched and inspired by. We're a 20-year-old organization that had a thesis that those companies that were best equipped to innovate for environmental and social benefit were going to be the ones that would win in the marketplace in the 21st century. And so we've been working at that thesis for quite a long time. We serve largely multinational corporations, but also the ecosystem that supports them, including small businesses that sometimes have the opportunity to test and prove out innovative business models before multinationals do. And it can be acquisition targets, as well as supply chain participants, consultants, agencies, academia, government, all of the ecosystem that supports our global economy.
Yeah, it's quite an ecosystem and quite a community, and we're going to come back a little bit around that topic of community. But you are, as I mentioned, fresh off the heels of Sustainable Brands 2023, your flagship event of the year. It had a theme of, and for my audience, I was there, and I've previewed in other videos that I did have a chance to speak as well. Regenerating local. That was the theme of the overall event. Tell me and tell our audience what does that mean and what inspired that to be the theme, and how did that feel like that showed up during this year's event held last week?
Well, I'd start with the observation that the move from talking about sustainability to talking about regeneration is finally catching hold in a big way. Something we initially introduced in 2014, but I'm happy to say that the world has finally gotten a hold of the fact that sustaining our current norms and operating principles is not going to get us to the future we want, and that what we really need to be doing is building systems that allow us to regenerate continually. So sustainable regeneration is where we're headed. The notion of the importance of activating at a local level any of the many principles and practices and policies and possibilities that regenerative ideas bring need to happen at the local level. Actually, as someone said, all politics happens locally, and that's true with regenerative and sustainable principles. I think the reason why we felt that this was a good year to be calling out that topic is because there's a lot of recognition coming out of COVID that supply chain disruption is a risk to business. There's a lot of recognition that the challenges in our social fabric and our ability to have civil discourse is challenging the environment that we all do business in, and that the opportunity to become more resilient, it really it's necessary to activate locally, both in terms of how we engage with each other and how we manage our supply chains and distribution and other aspects of our business. So.
And how did you feel that theme showed up throughout the days? It's 4 days so for the audience to know, 4 days of content and workshops and plenaries and breakouts and 1,000 plus, maybe 1,500 plus individuals there. The regenerating local theme. Anything really stand out of what you heard from that really brought that to life over the 4 days?
Well, I think yes, a lot, and we're premature in getting feedback compiled and back to you. But I think there were many discussions on both the power of localizing engagement and supply chain and so forth exists already in many examples that were shared on stage. Citibank being one example that of a company that has been approached many times for funding by companies that were too small to be material to them, but who realized that if they could they could build a platform that could pass leads on to local banks, that could become a win-win for them. So I think many examples and a lot of resonance and energy around the topic.
Yeah, I think the any particular highlights too around other events that took place over it, other things, any aha moments or just moments of impact for you personally? You've been leading this charge for so many years and seen the community grow and seen the whole platform grow. Anything really impress you and you walked away feeling maybe hopeful about?
Many things. I think from a content standpoint or conversation standpoint, lots of expansion in solutions from the materials and packaging standpoint, new data resources to help navigate and manage all of the data collection and processing and reporting needs. So more innovation coming online is a great thing. We had a great summit on regenerative ag. I think many of those who are in our space understand that the food sector is one of the major sectors that we need to rehaul. And so it was great to bring the whole ecosystem in the room and have a conversation that included farmers and ranchers at one end to the producers and brands, food brands, and the retailers, all talking about how to create more value across the value network for regenerative systems. That was exciting. A lot of positive energy came out of that. I think generally, again, the expansion of the adoption of the frame of regenerative business is notable. And we went from hearing Walmart and Target espousing their ambition to become a regenerative business to including other companies like Procter and Gamble for the first time, acknowledging that as a goal. So I think that's meaningful. And I think I loved seeing the combination of both new people coming to the table as well as people who've been around for many, many years. The connection between mentors like you and I who've been in this field for a very long time and new people coming to the table, a lot of them from companies that have been part of our community for a long time, is powerful and energizing. So those are a few things.
Yeah, and I think one thing that always has stood out to me, being part of the sustainable brands community, is really the bringing together the intersection of the brands and the marketing team side of the house and the sustainability side of the house. I think heading into this flagship, a lot of certainly questions out there of, and maybe not everywhere in the world, but certainly in some places in the world, a little bit of anti-sustainability, anti-ESG concern or backlash. Do you feel that, was there a question of like, should we stop talking about this? Do you feel like there's a movement more toward the hushing on this topic area, or keep charging out there? What did you hear from
Yeah.
brands on this topic?
Well, I think yes, there was quite a bit of stepping back and reevaluating that came out of the sort of middle of the year pushback that many of the brands in our community experienced and felt. I think this is not the first time that's happened. There was as you know, I think you've been around for long enough to remember the greenwash backlash in the 2008-2009 timeframe. And the same thing happened at that time, though we moved from the era of green wash to the era of green hush. And both of those actually erode the potential for creating value for companies. And so there's mistakes on either side are amiss. I think our community recognizes that. And We had a lot of data presented by a number of different researchers. You probably heard some, and I know you've seen some, that consumers are not shying away broadly from their ambition for companies to take stands and to help enable more sustainable lifestyles. So when we all take a pause and realize that some of the more vocal fringes do not necessarily reflect the middle America or the mainstream consumer, I think people fairly quickly get back on task and get back to realizing that maybe the question is not whether you talk or don't talk, but how you talk, right? And how you create language and frame your conversations in ways that are not exacerbating or triggering for certain categories of people, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of great insights there.
Yeah, and I think a real powerful moment on stage too, when Sandy Skis and her colleague from Porter Novelli also talked about this exact topic around what is it, what are consumers saying, what does an agency with expertise such as theirs recommend to the audience about this moment in time, and how do we show up and how do we articulate. So certainly for the audience who missed it, as content gets posted after the fact, I think always an opportunity to go take a look for that. In your remarks a minute ago, you used the word community, and I promised I'd come back to that. And I think that has always been one of the differentiators for the sustainable brands environment and events, is this notion of community. Do you want to speak to that, or what does that mean to you?
Well, it's it's an observation that our community, if you will call it that, brings to us continually and has over time. I think one of the interesting, fairly simple truths is that when one shows up authentically, it gives permission for others to show up authentically, and that we all yearn for that. So that it's not a huge magic, except to say that we're very committed to accepting people where they are, to assuming the best from them, to trusting that they really want to be part of a conversation, to respecting the fact that the work that we're doing is difficult, and that we all are facing the pragmatic realities of operating within a system of rules that are not necessarily supportive of the future that we want. And I think coming to our conversation with that set of assumptions creates a little bit different atmosphere and opens up the potential for a different kind of conversation that I think we find valuable, and those who have been part of the sustainable brands world have found valuable through the years. I think the biggest thing is that it really creates the opportunity for faster learning and innovation, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, I know we often talk about plus oneing something. If we agree with it, I'm going to plus 10 it.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said is experiencing that firsthand. And really, it's almost hard to describe. I think we say, oh, community sounds so nebulous, amorphous of a concept, but when you're in it, you feel it and you know it. And so,
it's hard. It's one of the biggest tasks is to get the PR teams and communications professionals out there to realize that PR speak is not necessarily conducive to productive, helpful, instructive, innovation-driven conversation and learning. And so, yeah, it's been a journey, but I do think we've created a community of trust that inclines people to be more real when they're in our circle than they often are when they show up in other places.
Yeah. And speaking of showing up in other places, for those of you who might be listening to this, if they're inspired, they don't have to wait a year, right, to come to a sustainable brands event. What does that horizon look like outside of the annual flagship event?
No, it's a great question. We just are finishing our, I think, 9th or 10th SB Spain this week, which was a very rousing success. It's been fun to watch online. I missed being there personally, but a lot of our core community were there, and I've seen lots of great reports from it. We're actually going to be in Thailand next week, so we're getting around the world, and then we'll be convening our members in New York in December. So we have a lot of levels of coming together of our community. We actually have online discussion groups and leadership cohorts happening this month and next month. So it's almost, I would say bi-monthly, there's some sort of convening of some constituency within our larger community.
Wow. So there's content, events, convenings, community, everything under the
and collaboration.
Collaboration. Don't forget actual collaborations. You're so right on that. Great projects there.
Yep. And then, of
Really.
course, you know about the conference that we launched last year coming up in May, which will be our next US based conference, which is our brand led culture change conversation. And it's very exciting to be at a place in our journey where we have enough of a stakeholder group that understands the importance of brand influence on getting ourselves to the economy that we want. So, having the conversation about how we create more pull so that we can sell all the new innovative, more sustainable products that we are bringing online will together accelerate our move towards a more sustainable living.
That's great. It's, May 2024, Minnesota, if I recall.
Minneapolis. Yep,
Minneapolis,
that's right.
Minnesota. That's great. So if you're out there, mark your calendars. Go beyond that. Go register. Go
Thanks very much.
express
Yeah, there's
interest.
some
Yep.
good discounting going on right now
Yeah.
before the end of the year. So
Oh, good, good. So, great event and at a discount. So you can't beat that. Well, great. Well, KoAnn, thank you to you and the entire team for all the work that you've long done for the community, for the topic, for the mission, for the shared humanity that we're all, and shared planet that we're all working toward. And thank you for joining us so soon after the Sustainable Brands flagship event. Really
no,
appreciate you being here today.
it's been a real pleasure to be in community with you, Doug, for many years, and look forward to welcoming more people to the table.
Great, thank you. And if you're out there listening and you like this content, do feel free to like and subscribe, and you'll see additional conversations exactly like this one over time. Again, and thank you for joining us here on the Sustainable Life channel. I'm Douglas Sabo, or at Green Living Doug. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time.